Welcome to another edition of Getting to Work, the podcast of NCI Works. I'm John Spencer from Starved Rock Media with a special guest today from far across our parking lot and across the street at Illinois Valley Community College, Tom Nestler. How are you, Tom?
Hi, John. Glad to be here.
Tom and I go way back to sports when our kids were both in school, baseball and football.
Yeah, that's what, 20 years ago?
Something like that.
Maybe a little more.
Clearly speaks to how desperate the community was to have coaches.
Yeah, we tried our best. We didn't win a World Series or a Super Bowl, but we did win the football thing once.
I think
we did win that once.
Yeah.
The championship of Spring Valley flag football.
Yeah, despite us, Yeah. Not because, despite us. Tom, you drove truck for over 4 decades, right?
Yeah, I started driving in 1974 and started out with a local job, and I did buy my own semi truck in 1975, and I did keep it for 10 years. Was on my own, independent, and I liked it. I did like it, but when trucking got deregulated in the early 80s, it really stepped up competition. And anybody knows anything about the trucking industry, when the economy slows down, freight rates go down too. Mm-hmm. The competition gets real intense. And it just wasn't working out to where I was making for as hard as I was working to make a good profit. Mm-hmm. And so I went to work for a freight company, and I worked for them, turned into 35 years.
Wow.
And stayed there. And it was a great job. And I retired out of trucking February of 19.
February of 2019, so a full year before the pandemic. You retired and you decided you're going to put your feet up at home there in the Valley. And now what? Some 3 years later, you're in your 3rd year at the truck driver training program at Illinois Valley Community College.
Well, I started out as just a trainer because the coordinator at the time had asked me prior to even me retiring, say, "Hey, why don't you come over here? When you're retired, come and see me. We need some trainers." I said, "Okay." So I did, and I was just a night trainer, started out part-time. Well, then during the pandemic, he actually retired. And so the job was up, posted on the college website, and I applied for it, and I interviewed and went through all the steps and was hired. So I've been doing the coordinator's job now since like April of 20. And we've been just cruising since then. I mean, the pandemic obviously slowed things down. The college, everything closed for that 2.5 months. We started up again literally June 1st of that year. And I can remember when I walked in, the administrative assistant I had at the time, Mary Beth, just looked at me and says, she knew me, but she said, "How are we going to get this thing started?" And I said, "Well, we're going to do our best. We'll see what we got going here. People have been off." So my boss, at the time, called me and he said, "Well, what do you think? We're going to get this thing going by August?" I said, "No, we're going to try to get it going by next week." And he says, "Really?" And we're calling people. We were in the middle of a class. We got to get these people back here and get them through, because now we got a backlog of 2.5 months.
Right.
And you're running 3 and 4 week and 6 week classes for days and nights.
Okay.
So I says, we got to get these people going. And I said, they're waiting. So we did. We were up and running like late June.
Wow.
Right before the 4th of July that year. I remember we got things going, and we were going pretty strong there. And then at the end of that year, Mary Beth, who was excellent, she was outstanding as an assistant over there, she retired. And now my new administrative assistant, Audrey, she started in January, and it just seemed like January 1st of 21, it just seems like everything just took off.
Okay.
I mean, the phone rings constantly, people calling, "Hey, when can I get in class?" We're scheduled out right now. We're into February of next year.
Wow.
I just a minute ago, when I left the office and came over, We had a young fellow and his mom in there. He's just graduating high school in the spring coming up. He's going to be 18 in February. He's signed up already for next year. We're getting a lot of younger people,
Okay.
18, 19-year-olds.
Hmm.
It's, you can tell when these kids come in, you talk to them, we interview them first, and get all this information to register them. You can tell they want to work.
Yeah.
They're looking, and some of them already have a job offer. I mean, it's amazing. But it's not just young kids. I mean, our age range of class is 18 to 62.
I was going to say, and we'll dial this back just a little bit because we do want to talk about truck driving industry as a whole just a little, and maybe a little bit on what it's doing, why it's in such demand. And then, of course, we'll talk about the program at IVCC for literally anyone who may be looking for a career. From the 18-year-old that you talked about that is coming in with mom and dad even before they graduate high school because they already have an inkling of what is going on, to people who may be looking at this as a second job, or something happened during the pandemic and their job is no more, or they're just looking to do something different. You see people like that every day in the truck driver training program, don't you?
Well, and back even a few years ago when the pandemic slowed things down, we had sand plants shutting down operations or cutting way back. The Del Monte plant in Mendota closed, Illinois Power Plant. We had people from all those. And like you just said, John, they were people that 50s, mid 50s, some late 50s. They're not ready to retire. And they look at it and say, well, they could come here and take this training, and there's no shortage of local jobs. Believe me. There's not.
And you think about all those packages that now probably show up on your doorstep, like they show up on my doorstep and yours listening. Somebody has to bring those. And that in large part is what's behind this big opening, if you will, for people to drive, right?
Right. It's the demand, like you say, even from small package carrier type jobs. I mean, so many people have went to online buying. Companies, big companies, industrial companies, they don't want to inventory stuff for long periods of time, or they want it picked up today in Chicago and they want it in Texas by 2 days later without delay,
Right.
And they're literally taking it off the truck sometimes, putting it right to a production line, things like that. So on time, guaranteed type deliveries, there's a huge demand in all truckloads. LTL is like a smaller freight carriers who don't haul one trailer load of one item. They're hauling multiple shipments from multiple shippers going to different locations. And then of course your package type carriers, but they're all hiring. Everyone's hiring. And it's the demand out there. I mean, a lot of people get into this and they look at it first, and we tell them, we say, this is not an 8 to 4 job. Okay.
Right.
There's very few of those jobs. You can figure 10 plus hours a day in most of those positions. Depending on what you do. I mean, locally here, a lot of people, students of ours, go to work in like agriculture type jobs for like grain elevators, sand companies hauling sand. Now sand's starting to pick up again. Construction's huge. A lot of companies that have hire out dump truck work, things like that.
And logistics here at the intersection of I-39 and I-80 as well.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you got major interstates here. If you go out here, it's just truck after truck out there. They're not all empty trucks.
No, most
they're
of them
carrying something.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be a few empty trucks going to pick up another load.
Right.
But for the all the trucks you see on the interstate out there, I mean, they're going somewhere. So
So we've established that there are jobs for someone who would want to consider a career in driving.
Right.
Tell me just a little bit about your career and why you did it for more than 4 decades, and why now you're training another generation of drivers.
Well, actually, the reason I started driving, because back in the 70s, I was actually working at the steel mill in Hennepin, and I got laid off. And I was young. I was 20 years old, going on 21. And I was off work for like a week or two, and I said, I got to have a job.
Yeah.
Well, I started working for a company locally. Well, I didn't start working for them locally. Actually, I just started riding with their semi driver. He
Okay.
was hauling beer from Milwaukee to Spring Valley. And I
That's
just
a full-time job in and of itself, right
well,
there.
I
by
knew
the
the
way.
guy, and one day he said, "Hey, you want to take a ride?" I had nothing else to do,
Yeah.
so I went with him. And a few days later, I took another ride, and about the third time I was with him, he pulled over on the ramp on 80 off the Spring Valley exit and said, "Hey, you want to drive?" And I go, "Sure."
There you go.
And
Not recommended and not allowed today.
no, but back then things were a lot
A
different.
lot different.
But yeah, I basically self-taught myself from watching this gentleman drive,
Mhm.
and come back. The first time he come back, he looked at me. He said, "Well, I'm going home." He says, "Go ahead and back the trailer in the dock." And I'm like, "What?
You want me to do
I don't know how
what?
to do this yet." He said, "You'll figure it out." So I did, and then kind of the rest just turned into the job there. It was a good job,
Mhm.
but then I saw that. I thought, man, I'd like to own my own truck,
Sure.
because I was running into people who own their trucks, and I thought I like the idea of being my own boss.
Absolutely.
So I did, and like I say, the first few years I was a little slow learning things. You know, you're
Mhm.
learning different things about the industry. You're not going to come into this industry and learn everything in a week or two.
Yeah.
New job, no matter how much training they give you, you're going to learn something every day. You're going to learn things you should and should not do.
Sure.
Um,
And that goes for almost no matter how long you're on the job, as far as I'm concerned. The day that you think you know it all
Oh.
is the day you probably ought to step away, because you're about to get run over.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, you know.
Don't there's so many things that can happen and happen quick, whether it's while you're driving or poor business decisions, things like that. um, you have to be on your toes, and we tell students that even with the class, we say, you're not going to come in here and learn pre-trip inspection, shifting, backing in one day, or probably not in the first week of class. By the second and third week, then we start to see who needs a little extra help and who doesn't.
Who struggles with parallel parking and who doesn't.
Right. And
If you can't parallel, this is a generalization, but if you have trouble parallel parking, is it safe to assume a career as a truck driver might not be for you?
well, the parallel parking problem at the DMV for the state, when you take your test, it is one of the things you do, and everybody says, "Why do I have to parallel park a semi?" I don't really call it parallel parking. I call it it's a marked off square on the blacktop.
Uh-huh.
It's 15 feet longer than the length of the truck, the overall length,
All right.
and it's 12 feet wide like a regular driving lane. I just call it, put the truck in the box, park it without being on the lines.
There you go.
That's what they want to see you do.
Right.
You could call it a parallel park
If you
but
want
there's
to.
two other reverse tests you have to do backing up. And so they're all different, but you
Mhm.
got to do all three to get your license.
Yeah.
In addition to, first of all, doing your pre-trip inspection, which you should do daily.
Right.
And then you do the skills, and then you do a road test, and you do them in order to pass them all. You have to pass all three to get your license.
Speaking of the skills test, there's an actual competition for truck drivers, right?
Yeah, the
And-
states and the nationals, sure.
I know, you know, from knowing you all these years, that you have participated and actually placed quite highly in these competitions over the years.
Yeah, I got involved with that back in the 80s. The company I was working for at the time, well, I worked my whole freight career with, they always promoted it, and it was really all geared for safe drivers. You couldn't have any kind of an accident and participate.
Okay.
No preventable or non-preventable. It had to be a
Nothing.
free,
You had a
clean
absolute
record
clean record
for the year prior to the event.
Okay.
So I started doing the Illinois event back in like the mid 80s, and I, over the course of missing a few years for graduations and things like that with the
Sure.
kids and things, but overall I probably participated over 20 years. I did win 4 times the first place in Illinois in my class. There's like 9 different classes.
Okay. Still.
And then you go to a national event, which brings all the first place winners from every state in the country.
Okay.
And it's moved every year. This
Sure.
past year it was in Indianapolis.
Okay.
I think next year it might be in Pittsburgh or some, I think it is.
All right.
And they move it every year.
How
So
did you place nationally?
highest ever got was 6th.
That's still pretty incredible.
But
6th in the country.
I mean, you got some guys that are really good
Yeah,
drivers there.
yeah.
The best of the best is there.
Yeah.
And but it was so much fun to go to. It's like a 5-day event.
Oh, yeah.
And you meet people from all over the country, and you talk war stories and
Sure.
comparable. And
Yeah, we could do another show just on
yeah,
war
we
stories
could
and
sit
things
here
you've
and
seen
talk
on the
about
road,
that
I'm sure.
forever.
But I went for the truck rodeo more than anything, just to tell you that if you are taking truck driver training at Illinois Valley Community College, you're in terrific hands with the program coordinator here. Now, let's talk a little bit about classes at the college. This is September as we're recording. October, probably the release date for this podcast. You're already into spring of 23, basically, to get people into these classes. That's how much demand there is.
Right. We're into February right now. We get a lot of people call, and some people just want information about the meeting. And like I say, my assistant handles that very well, brings them in for an interview. But yeah, if you're thinking of getting into it, the sooner you call, the better.
Mhm.
Or come in and interview and register. If there's a date, whether you want a day class or a night class, they seem to run pretty close to even, because some people are still working during the day and they come to class at night,
Right. Yeah.
5 in the afternoon till 10 p.m.
Okay.
And the day class is 8 to 4:30. That's, like I say, it's supposed to be 4 weeks, but now our classroom, the first week, we've kind of cut that down because we do our classroom online now.
Okay. All right.
So you could sit at home in your living room and study. And what you're doing is you're studying for 3 tests at the DMV to get a driver's permit for a semi. It's
Okay.
called commercial learner's permit, I'm sorry. But a general knowledge test, and this all pertains to trucks. General knowledge, air brakes, because all trucks have air brake systems, and combination tests. Combinations means tractor trailer.
Okay.
Okay. You have to pass those 3 tests. You have to get 80% or better to get your permit.
To even then continue with the program.
Right, because I can't let you drive the truck legally unless you have that permit.
Sure.
You're with a licensed driver. All of our trainers, I have 7 trainers, and I don't think any of them have less than 25 years experience.
That's phenomenal.
So there's a lot of experience there. And then also with your permit, you need a DOT physical and drug screen test, of course.
Okay.
And once you have those 2 things, you're ready for class. And the one thing we found out lately, because people do change their minds. Okay, they'll sign up and we'll give them like a month's notice, call, hey, your class is starting November 1st. I changed my mind. Can I have a spring class?
Right.
Well, we got people that maybe signed up for like a January class, but they're ready to go. They got that permit and they got that physical.
You can move them right in.
We'll just say to them, if you're able to, literally on a short notice, if you want to move up, we'll bring you up, because we want the trucks full. We want the seats full.
Yeah.
I
How
mean,
many do you have per session?
Well, in the truck, we have 3 students with each trainer. That's the most we can fit in seat belts in the truck. We have the trucks we have, it's a sleeper truck, but the back seat has a bench seat with seat belts in it. So you have a student driving, you have a trainer in the right front seat. We have 2 trucks right now. So basically 6 day students, 6 night students.
Okay.
We've, there are some schools that run more equipment and things. Right now, we're holding our own as we are with that. I have adequate trainers to fill the seat, the
Sure.
times. But sometimes some of these people, I have 2 guys that farm.
Right.
In about the next 2 weeks, I'm going to lose them for a month.
Absolutely.
And because they are going to be
Right.
harvesting and things like
Sure.
that. So in the spring and fall, I lose 2 guys there. And all my trainers are part-time, but they do a fabulous job. I mean, I couldn't handpick better people than what I've got. And they're all, like I say, industry veterans.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. So basically, in as little as 4 weeks, you could be behind the wheel of a truck
Sure.
with a brand new career in front of you.
Right.
And your success rate is phenomenal.
Yeah, our overall success rate, we're pretty proud of. It's running just about 97% right now. And that's, I mean, we tell the people in the class when they come in, you know, we're not perfect. We just do our best.
Mhm.
We will get you a license if you work and listen with us, and we can get you through this. I know some people say, "Oh my God, I got to do all." It's relax. You got to relax. You got to
One
be
day at a time.
patient in this class.
Mhm.
Some people that maybe get in over their head a little bit and they find out this isn't for me.
Sure.
Okay, that's that 3%. We don't take anybody out of class. If they quit on themselves, I can't
Well,
prevent
sure.
that.
Sure.
But we'll do our best to keep them in class and say, look, you know, okay, maybe you failed your first try at the DMV for your license. You do get 3 tries. If you would fail 3 times, you have to wait 30 days before you can try again.
Okay.
But we will do our best to get you through in the first try. Now, some people go over and they're just nervous.
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine you wouldn't be.
You've got a tester with you who you don't know who they are, and they're not saying a word when they test. They're just sitting in the truck listening to you talk about what you're inspecting, or watching you do a skills test, or riding with you on a road test.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's people get nervous and they
Sure.
tell me, and I say, you just got to relax.
Yeah.
You got to relax, and you'll see it. It'll come to you. And a lot of times I tell them, I say, like I say, you do the tests in order. That pre-trip, a lot of people say, you get through the pre-trip, and I said, all of a sudden I see people kind of just, okay, I got this. And they just relax
Uh-huh.
and they cruise through the rest.
There you go.
You know, it's
There you go.
sometimes that first initial
Sure.
meeting with the DMV people, because they go in there, and the DMV people we work with in Princeton are great. I mean, they're very understanding people. They do this every day. They test people for school bus drivers, truck drivers, people taking the car test. They deal with a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, it's they have great staff over there, and they know people get nervous. They understand that. I mean,
Oh, sure.
they know that you're going to get nervous. You might grind a gear. Everybody does it.
Yep.
I mean, people that driven millions of miles still grind gears once in a while. Anybody
Every
who
once in a
tells you they
while.
don't is lying.
It happens. It happens. So if somebody wants to know more about the truck driver training program at Illinois Valley Community College, I'm guessing call. You said your phone's ringing off the hook.
Right. Call our local number. Direct line is 815-224-0265. That would be Audrey Marino, my administrative assistant. She will get you lined up with everything you need to know as far as getting in the class, the timeline, tuition, everything you'll need to do. Like I talked about, your permit and your physical, the sooner you get that, the better.
Mhm.
The laws changed on that back February 7th of this year, where before you could get a permit and a physical and you didn't have to attend a certified school.
Okay.
You could literally make an appointment on your own. And the federal motor carrier of the United States changed that February 7th. Now you have to go through a certified school. It doesn't have
Okay.
to be the college. Some trucking companies run their own
Offer their
certified
own.
schools.
Sure. Yeah.
It has to be certified by the state,
Okay.
that you're going through the proper steps of classroom and all the training,
Right.
that you get the right training, and then take your tests at the DMV like we do normally.
Right.
But that did change in February. So
And probably for the better, don't you think?
yeah, it needs to be. There were cases, and I don't doubt it happens still, people getting a license under the table somehow.
Mhm.
Maybe some unscrupulous methods. You know, when it shows up, you run into these people somewhere. You go to a customer and you're sitting there waiting to go to the same customer. You watch this guy and he can't even back that truck up. You
Uh-huh.
think, how'd this guy get a license?
Yeah. Right.
It comes to mind quick.
Yeah.
And you run into a lot of people out there that, and I'll be the first to admit, there's a lot of people on them interstates out there driving cars and trucks both who shouldn't have a license.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
we've all
limit-
seen those.
The speed limit now is out the window, basically.
Yeah.
But no, you see it. You can handpick and see who the crazy drivers are out there. And I tell students that when you get into class now, sitting in a truck 7 feet off the ground. Now you're going to see a real good view of what goes on out there.
Yeah, you're going to see things that you had no idea were happening before.
Oh yeah. I
And
mean,
you have to be prepared. I mean, it truly is defensive driving
it is
when you're behind the wheel of one of those
Yeah.
big rigs.
I mean, you've got a truck that can weigh up to 80,000 pounds with
Wow.
a load on it.
Yeah.
So you have to know how to slow it down, how to stop, how to turn. You got to do everything right, because one mistake could be a bad mistake.
Yeah.
You know, you could turn it over or worse.
Sure.
So you can't, you got to, I always tell people, you got to lose your car driving mentality.
Mhm.
When you turn a corner, you got to remember you got 53 more feet behind you. Don't
Yeah.
let it hit the curb.
Yeah.
Don't hit a car. Don't hit anything.
Yeah.
So you have to, you really have to change your driving technique.
Totally different.
Oh yeah, and we
Yeah.
we watch that. I work constantly. I mean, watching the student, and a lot of times we can sit in the right seat and just watch them say, check your mirror. Where's your trailer at?
Yeah.
Look where your trailer's at.
You're not in the Buick LeSabre anymore.
No, you gotta be careful.
Yeah. Been a great career for you, and it continues at Illinois Valley Community College, Tom.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I mean, the college has been great working over there, and it's amazing the people we get. We get people from, I mean, it's not just LaSalle, Peru, it's everywhere. I mean, we've got students from 40 miles away coming to our program.
Mhm.
We're kind of in the middle out here. I mean, other colleges like the DeKalb area, Dixon, Bloomington, Peoria have programs too, but we seem to reach out here. I mean, we get a ton of students from Streator, Ottawa, even further north, and Route 34, clear east of Mendota, Princeton. They're from all over. I've got a guy in the class right now from Sterling, Illinois.
Wow.
He said he actually checked out another college, and he said someone else referred him to us.
Wow.
Which I thought, well, I'm glad they did.
That speaks volumes. If you or someone you know is interested in a career driving truck, you need to get a hold of Tom. Well, actually, Audrey at Illinois Valley, at Illinois Valley Community College's truck driver training program. 97% pass rate, and jobs are waiting. ibcc.edu, their web address. For all things job related in North Central Illinois, it's nciworks.org. Tom, good to catch up. Good to see you. Thanks
Great.
again for your time
It
and
was great being here.
what you're doing, giving back to our community and the area as a whole.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's if you look around the area, there's so many businesses locally here that are totally dependent on trucks. Somebody's got to drive them.
That's right.
I mean, you look on it, whether it's a job search site and things like that. I mean, there's tons of jobs locally.
Yep.
It's just, you don't have to be cross country to do it. I mean, you can be a local driver, be home every day. It might not be banker's hours, but
Sure. Still,
there's still a lot of available jobs for, being home daily.
like you said, somebody's got to drive it, and it might be you. Find out more today at nciworks.org. And that'll do it for this edition of Getting to Work, the podcast of NCI Works.